Hello and welcome everybody out there to another live episode of Coaching from the Heart with myself, Tyler Thurman, and my very good friend, coaching colleague, and co-host, Harold Feddersen.
Hi, Tyler.
Hey, Harold. Uh, Thanks for being with me and everybody else out there that's watching again today. It's lovely to be back on another Thursday. So, our topic for today is going to be beyond belief. And we're going to be discussing the nature of beliefs and thoughts, and I'm just going to go a little deeper into that. But first, how to reach us. Harold and I are both professional transformative coaches. That sounds very official, but really we just support people to have more wonderful lives, go discover some deeper truths about ourselves. And if you're interested in working with either of us, reach out to me. You can find me at www.coachtylerthurman.blogspot.com. And Harold, where can everybody find you?
Well, Tyler, thanks to your inspiration, I built myself a website on the weekend. And you can find me at www.haroldfeddersen.ca.
Nice. Nice. I like it. So there you have it. That's where you can get a hold of us. And we're going to start putting a little link at the bottom of our shows so you don't have to actually type it in. All right, Harold. So you're going to start us off today. So I'm going to put it over to you.
Okie dokie. So the title is called Beyond Belief, which is fun. I thought that was a fun title you came up with. So you and I were talking about beliefs and kind of not the sticky nature of them, although they can be sticky, but more of the rigidity that they can form for us in our lives. And I think it's important first to just kind of define it, because people take beliefs really seriously.
Which is part of the problem, right?
Which is part of the problem. Yeah, I ran across this recently with someone, and because sometimes I forget, sometimes I forget just how solid things are for some people. And anyway, so let's just clarify what a belief is and where it comes from. So a belief, as I define it, is a thought structure that you just have on repeat. It's something that it's a thought that you have either attached yourself to, as in a teaching or something from somewhere, and you've attached yourself to it, or it's one that you've come up on your own, or some hybrid of those, and you just keep repeating it. And it's just you have found evidence in the world to make it true, so therefore it is a fact for you.
Right.
Yeah, but it's not a fact. I
We'll
I
get
should,
into that bit.
yeah.
Definitely.
I should also say just early on too, because I don't think you and I are saying beliefs are bad. We're not saying, you should go around with like a completely empty noggin with no beliefs. It's just really valuable to have clarity on what your beliefs are, so as to be able to see them, so as to be able to hold them as, as they are, for what they are. So a belief, as I just said, is a thought that's on repeat. It keeps going around and around. So prior to a belief, we do have to have a thought. Now, the coolest thing about thoughts is we actually don't know where they come from. If you've done any meditation, you've noticed that it's like all of a sudden it's like all these thoughts are just like right there. I don't know where they come from, and that's actually not important at all. What's
Yeah,
important is just,
there's all sorts of theories, right? But nobody can really
yeah, we can't.
definitively. We can't. You could come up with just as good an answer as we could. In other words,
You come up with a belief about where thoughts come from if you want.
that's right. And then you can really think that it's true, right? You can
Yeah.
deceive. Oh, I just wanted to interject real quick that
Yeah.
I like how you put the loop. It's like a looping thought system. The way that I first heard it was I used to listen to a lot of the Abraham Hicks
Oh, yeah.
work
Yeah.
just a long time ago. It's been a
Yeah.
while since I have, but they used to call it, Abraham used to call it, a belief is a thought that you keep thinking. And I like the simplicity of that, so I just want to put that in there.
Hmm. Yeah, it's such an interesting thing because we all do it. We like it's just part of being a human. It's how it
Right.
goes. Um,
It's a function of the mind. It's just something we do with our minds.
yeah, and we also a lot of the time I don't think we're even aware. Um, well, I don't believe we're aware sometimes that we have any kind of a choice in this matter. It's like,
Mm.
no, this is just the belief. We vote for Republicans because they're the best.
Mm. Yeah,
Sorry, that just caught me as funny.
you're
Um,
bringing politics into this, Harold. I
yeah,
can't
yeah.
believe you would
I was
do
trying to
that.
avoid the religion one. Yeah. Okay, your turn.
So, yeah, there's some really important things about. First of all, I really like what you said about kind of set us up there. Um, that so one of the things you said is it's important to understand the beliefs that we have, and I agree. And I also believe we can take. I believe, right? We can take it a step further in that the most valuable thing we can do with beliefs, which is actually not doing anything with them, is to understand them on the whole, not uh, not necessarily because one of the things that we like to do is dissect specific beliefs, and there's all sorts of books written about the power of belief and the changing belief systems, and I used to do that with NLP and all sorts of other
Hmm.
stuff. But in my experience as a coach and just a human being on planet Earth who thinks and believes stuff, um, the most valuable thing I've ever gotten out of beliefs is understanding their nature more.
Hmm.
And like you said, Harold, we're going to do it because that's what we do. That's one of the things. It's just mental energy kind of bottled up in one place, right? It's just thoughts that we have identified with in some way or decided this cluster of thinking is true. Um, So the first thing I think for me when I look at just the topic of beliefs in general is number one, um, they they're just it's just this mental thing that a lot of people we don't even really. I mean, I've talked to people that don't know they have beliefs, right? They just think that they're thinking. They don't even know they have thinking, in fairness, right?
Yeah.
It's just their experience of life is the one and only right way to live life, and everybody
It's
else
the
somehow is wrong.
it's just the truth.
It's just the truth. So that's the second piece for me that's really important to know about beliefs is it's it's an experience we create for ourselves of truth. So like I really like how you put it. It's true for you, right? But that does not mean that it's true on a deeper level, where it's cosmically true, or even it's true in a physical world sense, right? There's, if you don't believe me, go look up the Flat Earth Society, right? Right, we could sort of deceive ourselves into believing just about anything. Um, and again, it doesn't mean that beliefs are bad. Uh, you know, it's just a way of thinking, and certainly thinking is not bad. We can't really not think. It's sort of one of the things uh, that we do here. Um, but it's really important to know about beliefs, and most importantly, that we can be we can be wrong. Like beliefs, I would say most beliefs. I don't think all, but most beliefs are false beliefs. Um, and they're in other words, they're just not a representation of the truth behind life. Um, Now, that doesn't mean that they can't be useful in some way, shape, or form to help us kind of navigate the world, but more often than not, they become um, a boundary condition of our own mind.
Yeah. I, I have just this thing popped into my head about how, we have beliefs that support our lives, and we have beliefs that actually contain us from life.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
well said.
and it's funny because just because we have the belief doesn't actually mean we even live from the belief. Because I think we've all done this, where we actually believe that being kind and generous to other people is good, and yet all of us at some point are unkind. We'll say an unkind thing or do an unkind
Right.
act. So it's not like just having, like you were mentioning, the books, the power of belief. It's not like just having the belief is gonna make the difference, because that's
Right.
not where necessary. It's not, most of the time, it's not where your movement comes from.
It's funny you say that because one of one of my favorite sayings, I probably quote to my wife too much, is "Our hypocrisy knows no bounds." Right. It's just as
Yeah.
human beings, because we're unaware, excuse me, of so much of what's going on in our mind. We can't not be hypocrites a good portion of the time because we're so unaware of what our belief system is. It's hard to be in alignment a lot of times with our own rhetoric, or the stuff that we speak to and say, oh, like you said, oh, that's a good thing, and this is over here, that's a bad thing. And then, of course, we in the next few moments we'll go and do the exact opposite.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's actually a really good point too, Tyler, that we're out of alignment,
Mm.
right? Because you see that a lot. In coaching terms, we talk about integrity, right? Where your thoughts, your words, and your actions are all in alignment, and that's what integrity is.
Mm.
Um, and we can see that when we have a belief, but we're not actually living our lives as though that belief is truth. So one of our goals is to align our beliefs with the deepest truth that we know, and then we actually have to surrender over to that. So in the moment
Mm.
when we're going to make a decision, which actually, we're going to do something that's currently in my best interest, but it's actually in contrast to that deeper truth that we're trying to align ourselves with, we then are out of alignment. And it's just that truth is inconvenient at this moment, because I actually would rather be right now than live according, I don't want to give up my little thing. I want to keep my little thing so that I can be
Well,
right.
that goes back to a lot of our previous conversations about righteous indignation, right? No, there's this deep need of the ego to be right, um,
Yeah.
desire, and so it's it's a little bit of a battle between the ego and the spirit. Not really, because the ego's not really a real thing, but another thing I just wanted to point to that you mentioned, and I don't know if you realize this or not, but I'd love to hear you speak to it more, was you mentioned the deepest belief, which suggests some kind of shallow beliefs. Like we can have deeper and shallower beliefs. I'm just curious um,
Oh,
if you
okay. I think
meant that, or you could speak to that, or
no. I think what I said is so
the
we've
deepest
all
truth. Maybe you said
yeah,
deepest
yeah,
truth.
the
Yeah.
deepest truth. So whatever the deepest truth that you have experienced in your life. Because if you take somebody else's deepest truth, like Jesus or Buddha or whatever, you're now taking, this is what we talked at the beginning, you're taking an external belief as your own, and then you want to live from that.
Right.
And the invitation that we have is to, what is the deepest and most true experience that you have had, and then align your beliefs with that, because that's going to
Absolutely.
resonate out in the world in a much more authentic way than, this is what Jesus said and I believe it, and now I'm going to try and align myself with his truth as
Right.
opposed to your own truth. And I think you and I probably agree that if we go deep enough into your own well, you're going to find the same well that Jesus was
It's
drinking from.
same.
Like all the underwater's all the same.
Yep. Yep. Heresy, Harold. Heresy. Same well as Jesus? That's pretty exclusive company.
A couple hundred years ago, I would be on the stakes right now.
Yeah, you might not be quite as peace as at peace as he was during that process, but it,
But
that's an advanced lesson.
he wasn't even at peace though, right? Remember, he was crying out. He was like, "God, why have you?" He was
Okay,
in. Okay, okay,
I'm gonna get myself in trouble, but that's the story the Bible tells.
right.
Yeah,
But he went through
yeah.
he went through
Watch
his
out.
struggle, and then he got to the peace, and then he was in the peace.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm
but
gonna.
anyway, let's
Yeah,
go
in
back.
a different direction. So no, I'm glad you cleared that up because I misheard you, and I think it's kind of funny because it's such a great distinction because you didn't say deeper belief, you said deeper truth, and um, it, I think that speaks to the fundamental distinction. I think between truth and belief, because in a lot of ways they're fundamentally different. A belief can never be truth. It can, in my experience, like you said, it can kind of take us in one of two directions. Um, Further from the truth or a deeper truth, right? Our deeper truth as spiritual beings,
Hmm.
having a human experience. Um, or it can take us deeper into illusion, right? Or another way of saying that is just a false belief, a belief that is out of alignment with the truth of who we are. It's out of alignment with our spirit, our big mind, our innate health, that innate love and peace that is our very nature. And so belief is not inherently good or bad. It's just kind of this. I've more recently been thinking about it as sort of a directional device of the mind, right? It's really just it sets us on the path to illusion and or delusion, or it sets us on the path back towards our deeper nature, back towards truth. But it's not, even if we have a belief in the direction of the truth, to go with that directional analogy, um, that doesn't mean that the belief about the truth is the same as the experience of that truth, right?
No, it's not the same.
It's not the same,
No.
but it can get us looking in the right direction. Um,
That's an interesting thing, because so if I've got this right, so we have the true experience, and then the belief is birthed from that. Yeah, that's what you're saying?
Let's say more about that.
Okay, so we have some experience that is where we feel really connected to something true. You know, we're like,
Mm.
wow, this right here, there's truth here. I can feel it, or I've experienced it. And then from there, then we birth a belief system from that, which we can use as a how would you put this, as a like a homing device, like as a way for us to
Yeah.
connect to the truth in the new present.
Yeah, kind of like a beacon almost. Like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah. And I think, you know, it can also go the other way, where we actually just adhere ourselves to the belief, and now we just
right.
live as though the belief is the truth, which it never
And
is.
I'm really glad that you clarified that because I
Okay.
didn't do a great job of that. Because yeah, I agree 100%, and that's why I think it is so valuable to know that there is a distinction between that belief and the deeper truth, right?
Yeah.
So like if you don't know that, you're gonna there's gonna be a tendency, and there'll be a tendency anyways, right? Because the ego just doesn't want to go there. But
Yeah.
but there's going to be even more of a tendency to just stop there and just, like you said, sit in that belief, um, and not really move towards what's behind it. What's that deeper thing that's behind that? Um, we're going to be more likely to just stop there if we don't know that that's not it.
Hmm.
So I'm glad that you brought. I think you clarified that really well. Um,
It's almost just this picture came into my head, as they do. Um, you know, so we had we you know, we have the original experience, and then we create a belief from that. And then if we end up living just from the belief, it's almost like we're living inside of you know, those little bubbles that you make bubbles in the summer with the little plastic loopy thing or string or whatever.
yeah, you
It,
blow on bubbles.
yeah, exactly. So it's almost like you're inside of one of those bubbles, and there you are floating through the world, and you think that you are living the truth, where in reality you're actually living inside of this belief, because you
Right.
can because you could pop that bubble and drop the belief and enter back into the true truth in the present as it is in that moment.
Right. Absolutely.
Because sometimes we use beliefs as a way to shield ourselves from the abrasive and painful reality of being human.
Yeah, and I think it can become sort of an intellectual exercise, right? Let's debate our belief systems,
Hmm.
and it's really just, um, in a lot of ways, they're just kind of opinions, right?
Hmm.
That feel more solid than that, right?
Hmm.
In fact, a lot of people think their opinion feels pretty solid to start with, so maybe that's not the greatest example, but it's just knowing that, yeah, I like that idea of it as a shield, because it really is, um, there's kind of a barrier there
Totally.
between what the belief is in and the actual thing itself. Not a physical thing, obviously. I mean, it could be about a physical thing, but that's not what we're talking about here. Um, yeah.
And you've probably experienced this too, where you're talking to someone and their presence becomes veiled. Like this is actually, I'll just, this is the person that I was talking to, I think it was last week, and I ran into this really strong belief structure. And I was
Mm.
talking to the person, and it was as though I actually couldn't even access their presence
Right.
because they were shielded behind this thick belief structure that there was no way I was gonna get into because I don't have the same belief system. It's almost like if I did have the same really solid belief structure, we'd both have like a secret key, and then we could speak the secret language together. Um,
Oh, you're a believer too?
so from inside my fortress, I can talk to you inside your fortress. But with those sort of veils down, it was almost
Right.
like I couldn't be with the person I wanted to because we were talking. I really like this person, um,
Sure.
but I couldn't. Uh, their presence was not available because they were behind the structure of their belief system.
Yeah. Yeah. I really like that. It reminds me that most of you know I'm a student of A Course in Miracles, and there's a theme throughout that book that is that in a lot of ways beliefs are a defense against the truth. Um,
Mm-hmm. They're a
and
yeah,
so,
shield. Yeah.
yeah, you said a shield, and immediately came to my mind. Oh, that's where that is, that defense against the truth, because that's literally what that is in that case. Um, and so, yeah, I really just like how you put that, because it does. It's like, yeah, we're each in but like these behind these closed doors with we each have microphones inside that we can sort of project our message, but each of us are living inside those, belief systems,
Separate
right?
quarters. Yeah.
And then sometimes the language matches up between two people, and we think we're connecting, right? We think, oh, they said, oh, you believe in God, or spirit, or law of attraction, or it could be anything, right? um, uh, and you're like, oh, a kindred spirit, like you said,
Yeah.
but really you're just reinforcing the defense system. It's
Yeah.
like, oh yeah, yeah, I have agreement, but you don't really know even what you're agreeing about. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. In fact, there's very likely, um, if those two people were to go deeper, they would find that they don't agree at all. Um, or this just kind of came to my mind. Um, a deeper understanding of beliefs and thoughts, and just kind of the nature of the mind in general, um, can bring us together in a more meaningful way, because literally one of the things that ties us all together is the human experience, which is made up of thoughts and beliefs. So, not with the specific content of those things, but as we begin to understand our deeper nature, which part of that is beliefs, belief systems. That's one of the things that we do, like we said in the beginning of the show. The more I understand, we all do this. Now, we all have different content for our beliefs, but we all make up shit that's not true. And then believe it and act and behave as if it is true, and then collect evidence to support it. And then we believe even more strongly that it's true,
And then we find
right?
people who have the same beliefs, and we
And then we find people that agree with us, or they think they have the same beliefs,
or
right?
we're really, really close, but there's a couple differences. And if
It's
those
close.
differences are strong enough, then we're actually going to create different buildings, right? Like we have what do we have? 100
Different
different
camps.
denominations of Christianity. It's like
Yeah.
all these tiny. It's like I believe in this, yeah, me too, but I don't believe this part. Oh, me neither. Or I do believe that, and we can't be. We got to be in separate buildings now, and
Every
yeah.
single field, quote unquote, in the history of humanity has sections, has partitions, right? Like
Yeah.
my personal ones are psychology and coaching, right?
Mm,
I think last I checked, there was over 300 plus different sort of uh, technical ways of counseling somebody, right? That
mm,
you can get certified in, right? Over 300 models, right? And coaching, I don't have the numbers, but it's probably
Oh,
getting up there. It's getting
astronomical.
close. It's getting close.
It's
Yeah.
probably beyond with the the weekend. Or you can just
Eh,
in coaching, you can just call yourself a coach. You don't have to have any training.
yeah. Well, sure, for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
But you did.
eh,
Oh,
no,
go ahead.
go ahead. You got it. The floor
Oh,
is yours.
we're in the gentleman standoff. No, okay, I'll break it. So your Course in Miracles comment triggered a really great thing. Actually, you were triggering all sorts of things off of my having all these synaptic flashes thanks to you.
Yep.
So it reminded me of Adyashanti has this great line, and I love it. And it's almost like it's tattooed inside of me. You can either have the truth, or you can be right,
Hmm.
or you can have the truth, or you can feel good about whatever it is you want to feel good about. The truth does not care what you believe in. The truth does not care how you feel.
Right.
It's like here's the truth. So it's that whole shielding thing. You know,
Yeah.
we have to make up a shield from ourselves from or for ourselves from the truth if our belief systems are more valuable to us than the truth.
Right.
If the truth is more valuable to us, then we have that um, often painful experience of realizing that our beliefs are not in alignment with reality.
Harold, I believe that's called disillusionment. And it's an all too common experience for us human beings. Um, but yeah, I think you were speaking to uh, truth as a sort of a pillar. It's this, the truth in my studies, right? My experience, I sometimes use the language as the truth of God or the peace and the love of God. Um, it's just language, right? You can use whatever you want. But um, A Course in Miracles talks a lot about the truth stands on its own. It doesn't need our belief systems to prop it up, right? What does need propping is our delusions and our illusions, right?
Hmm.
Those false belief systems, and all that means is it's a thought system that's not based in a deeper truth. That's it. That's all it means. But that requires energy, mental energy to maintain that. And we actually think it's the other way around. Like I've got to somehow use belief to like to make the truth more true. Or in some crazy way, some insane ways of thinking, we think if I believe this long enough and hard enough, it will be true. Now that can actually be true in sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy sense, like you sort of live into certain things, but not in a cosmic sense.
Well, even in the human sense, you only live into the evidence of it,
Right.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so even in that it's kind of delusional, right? It's not
Hmm.
it's not really real. um but yeah, go ahead. You got
The
something?
thing about you know, um, it takes so much energy to keep the facade of our beliefs going.
Hmm.
The image that I got, so images. I got an image of one of those. You probably don't have them in Albuquerque, New Mexico, but up here in northern Canada, we've got these people have these big. What I don't know what they're called. They're like snowmen and things, and they fill with air, and they
Uh-huh.
blow during the day or during the night, and they light up. They're like Christmas lights, but they're these big giant things. Anyway, Um, it's kind of like that. Like your belief system is this big air-filled snowman, but you constantly have to be blowing air into it because as soon as you unplug it,
Right.
the whole thing just crumbles, right? It just falls to the earth.
Yeah. Yeah, and that you know what that what comes to my mind when you say that is that's why surrender is relevant in this conversation.
It
Um,
is
because
requisite.
I believe we had a show about that, or maybe not. That maybe it wasn't titled, but we certainly talked about it quite a bit. Um,
I can't remember.
but because no degree of belief can change the truth of who we are, right?
Hmm.
It's sort of prolonging the inevitable, which is actually quite a beautiful inevitable, by the way. But we don't think it's going to be. Um, but it's not like the truth is just there. It's gonna weather all of our belief system storms,
Hmm.
right? And eventually we're gonna so weary ourselves. It's a line from A Course in Miracles that
Mm.
we become wearied, right, with our
Yeah.
continual effort and energy required to blow up that balloon, and just, oh, I've got to maintain. Because what we're doing is, if you just think about it logically, trying to maintain a belief system that's not based in truth, you gotta, you gotta come up with a lot of delusional stuff, a lot of mental energy to prop that up, to continue to move forward in the face of evidence to the contrary, right? You know, the truth. Um,
Hmm.
now, the truth in and of itself, like we can't tell you what that is. That's something you're going to have to explore for yourselves.
Well, you can't put it
Um,
into words.
you can't put it into where I could talk about it as God. I could talk about it as love, spirit, but you could make a belief out of those words, right? And you're
And
probably very likely to do so. Yeah. And so, but just knowing there is a deeper truth, and it is standing up against everything we believe. Um, it's nice to know because you can give up the fight. In a lot of ways, it's a fight. Actually, who did I give this analogy to? A client. I was speaking with a client yesterday, I believe, a coaching client, and I was using the example. You've probably heard this. It's pretty common in sort of self-development circles, I think. But just basic physics example of if there's a like a human person that's pushing against a wall, there's actually a physics phenomenon of pushback, right? Um, there's a literal, if you push against a wall, there's a literal force pushing back. Um, but it's really nothing to do with the wall other than it's immovable, right? In this analogy, right? Um, it's everything to do with the pusher. And there's no pushback if there's no pusher, right? And the harder you push, the more equal pushback there is. Now, the truth doesn't actually push back, but it can seem like it's pushing back. The world's pushing back against our beliefs. Um, but really, that's just the struggle against something that's not real, that's not true. And yeah, so uh, Harold, I wonder if we could. This is just kind of coming to mind, but any common type of belief you can think of that we could just give an example? I'm just curious if, because I feel like we've been kind of speaking abstractly, right? And people are like, okay, belief, right? And then we don't really give any examples of what that what that might look like in a more specific sense.
Boy, that's a good question.
Well, I can tell you one that comes immediately to my mind, which is um, very common, very controversial, right? But a belief in God,
Mm,
right? Um, my experience, a belief in God is very different than an experience of God. Now, we can have an experience of our belief, right?
yeah, yeah.
And
That's where we
that's
create
the
evidence.
kicker. That's the
Yeah,
kicker, right? It's tricky. Um, but
that's a good distinction right there.
yeah,
Because that's what has people gather, right? Because I believe X about God, and then you go in search of other people who believe X about God as well.
right.
And then there's other group that believes Y about God, and they're just belief systems. They may have been birthed from experience,
Yeah,
or they
that
may
deeper
have
truth.
been, yeah, or they may have been given to you by probably your denomination or your upbringing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. When we just take it on, um, for lack of a better term, I don't mean this in a derogatory sense, but blindly, right? We take it on in a uh, just no questions asked, right? But we also didn't have any kind of meaningful experience. It was just, I was told to go here, so I went here.
Yeah, and that's the big distinction. And I think that's a good way. That's actually a great. The belief in God is a good one, because when you
It's
say,
so common when we can all relate to it in one way or
yeah,
another, I think.
so you either believe in God or you don't. But let's say you believe in God. Have you had, or do you, because that's a tricky one too, right? Have you had the experience? Yeah, I had it when I was 12, and now I just believe based on my experience when I was 12. But right now, can you experience that? Do you experience God right now, or do you believe in
Right.
God?
Yeah, and one of the ways that I talk about that kind of I think is supportive to people is glimpsing God, right? I don't think I've had a 100% experience of the truth of who we are, like that our soul, our spirit, an extension of God, that that innate well-being. I think I would probably um, I'd be able to remember the exact day and time if I had. But there are things that they have the hint, the whiff of truth to them, that deeper truth, that those moments of peace and calm and reflection, and where somebody says something to us that maybe many different people had said to us before, but we heard it with the ring of truth for the first time. Whereas before we just sort of heard the words and there was nothing behind them. Um, and so I think, to say I'm living 100% as the experience of, pure love or God or, you know, that
Hmm.
might be a bit of a stretch, but not to say people haven't had those experiences. I think that they have. Um,
And that's also the slap to the face that wakes us up, because we can go along feeling hoity-toity and really confident. It's like this is the truth, and then it's like, is that? Do you experience that? Are you in that experience right now?
yeah,
Because uh, we always have to return to our experience, because that is our link to truth, to life as it is. Um,
right,
and you can't be stuck in your thoughts and be experiencing that truth at the same time. because your thoughts are I love the Zen analogies. Like thoughts are like clouds that move across the blue sky. You are the blue sky, and the thoughts just pass. But what we do is we actually attach ourselves to a cloud, and then we're inside of the cloud.
Hmm.
And in that moment, are you the experience you're speaking of, or are you separate from it now talking about it?
Right.
Because then all of a sudden you're like, oh, right, I'm inside this cloud. And then all with some facility, of course. I mean, this takes a lot of practice, but um, you can then fall back, into the sky that you are,
Yeah.
and that's how when you meditate, that's kind of the experience, right? You get to this point either for a second or a minute or whatever, where you're the sky. You just almost, it's like you just watch these thoughts and beliefs just move in, and then they move and they just pass, and it's you get
Right.
the experience of the truth of that.
Yeah. I think a lot of teachers and coaches and practitioners have probably, I'm guessing a lot of us have probably had the experience of speaking about things like this, right? And then all of a sudden sinking down into it.
Hmm.
And you're like, oh, I was just talking about it before.
Yeah.
I wasn't in it. I wasn't in that moment. It was a it appeared as though I was separate, right?
And
And
it's also humbling, eh? When
yeah,
you
yeah, because yeah, like I experience that all the time. Not the just that I'm just speaking about it, right? That you know, um, and in some ways, that's a great way to start, right? It points us in a direction at least. Like you said, we can get really caught up in that, but it can also be a something that moves us in that direction as well. Uh, I think,
Mhm.
yeah. So I had some. I read. I think I was telling you um, before we started the show live that every day I do my Course in Miracles lessons, right? And I read some out of the text, and I always find something that's relevant to the topic of the show that we're going to be doing because we decide, at least a week in advance typically. Um, and so today I was, of course, as it always happens, I just bumped into a whole paragraph about beliefs, right, in the
Hmm.
course. So there's just a couple quick lines I just wanted to read. I don't know if they're going to be helpful or not, but I think they're interesting at least. So um, uh, this is in chapter 6, The Lessons of Love, section 5. And it says, the voice for God speaks only for belief beyond question, which is the preparation for being without question. And I really like that because you were sort of speaking to the being of it, but
Hmm.
it can sort of be along the path to being. And there's a part at the very end of this paragraph that says, you cannot go beyond belief, the title of our show. Uh, you cannot go beyond belief until you fully believe. And so I feel like what comes to mind is that your analogy of the bubble,
Mm.
like it's almost the bubble reaches a saturation point. Uh, uh, but I don't know exactly what that means, but I think there's something in there of the direction of this belief is the truth. It's not the truth in and of itself because it's still a belief, but at some point it can reach some kind of saturation point, probably with the help of our deeper self, right?
Well, I think we did touch that. It was the
Yeah, maybe we did.
so you start with the experience, and then from the experience of truth, you then build a belief. And then once you have that belief, you can go two directions. You can go to the bubble
Right.
direction where you're safe, or you can use that as your entry point back into the place where the belief came from. So maybe that's what the
So well said. I really like how you put that. Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. That's I think that's what the course is speaking to there.
Hmm.
But I also really like the idea that amongst the noise in our mind, there there can be and is a voice for God. It might not be the voice of God, but it's the voice in propelling us towards what we've forgotten or what we've believed against in a lot of ways.
Mm.
And to me, that's a really comforting notion that there's sort of a, I think we talked about on a different show, there's sort of a call home,
Mm-hmm.
a pull towards that truth. And that's something I don't know if we touched on it too much in this show, but there really does seem to be, it's hard to, you can't really put a label on it, you can't put a structure around it, but there's some kind of a pull home. Um,
Because
yeah,
that's what it is, right? Like
right.
the truth is ever moving, ever present, ever there. And then we separate ourselves from the truth by attaching ourselves to our thoughts and our beliefs. And so it is always there. It's always there, just like it's the moment we let go of our little belief that we're the cloud.
Right.
We just naturally, it's like gravity. We just naturally go back to that which we are.
Yeah, there. That's beautifully put. I think it's like a gravitational pull. It's just like
Yeah.
just slow. Sometimes real slow.
Because, like you said, it takes so much effort and energy to keep the thing alive.
So when we begin to let our guard down, right,
Hmm.
or that defense system that we've put up, that
Hmm.
again requires all that energy. It's like, oh, it's
For me, it was
a gentle pull. Yeah, go ahead.
for me it was I just eventually I just got tired of listening to my own BS. You
Yeah,
know, I, I'm like,
absolutely.
you just keep saying the same thing, Harold. You just keep saying the same thing, and you can feel the emptiness of it. So stop saying it. And then it's just like you just you just get tired of it.
That reminds me of my coach, one of my mentors, Michael Neal. He I can't remember. He was saying something about to one of his teachers, I believe. Uh, it's so nice to not be full of shit anymore.
Mm.
To put it, bluntly, right?
Hmm.
It's there's just something, um, yeah, something nice
There's
about that.
also another thing I was going to save this for my parting shot, but I'll do it now.
Well, we're coming up towards the end of the show,
We're
so
yeah,
you might as well.
this um when you were talking about how much energy it takes, it made me think about just how much like how exhausting it can be. And there are people I know, I've actually coached people who one of their things is they're like, I'm just always so tired.
Right.
And one of the types of tired that we have is we're tired because there's so much mental energy going into sustaining this whole structure that we have. Like when you start looking at it, it is huge. Like it's almost it's for some people it's their entire life. Their entire life is in this
Yeah.
giant filing system of beliefs and thoughts, and the amount of incredible energy that it takes to keep that going.
Yeah, you keep track of it. You got to live your life according to this
Yeah,
thing, this
judge
big.
yourself when you're not.
You know what comes to my mind is this massive scaffolding that's just like almost like a Richter set, the toys that kids
Mm,
build stuff with, or Legos, I guess you could use that.
yeah, Meccano or
But
whatever.
yeah, something like that, where it's just this massive structure that we've constructed without knowing that we've constructed it. And then we're like, we got to like maneuver around this thing. And then at some point, you you can realize, one, oh, I put that there, or I kind of accumulated it throughout my life, or whatever it is. And two, it's all smoke and mirrors, right? It's not a real structure. It feels real. It seems real. Like it said, it feels dense. It feels solid.
Yeah.
An analogy that A Course in Miracles uses that I love. Just I wish I could open to the exact page, but I can't remember it right now. Um, about a dense looking cloud, right? It looks like a freaking wall. It looks like a brick wall, but it just looks that way. And it couldn't hold up a dime.
Hmm. Yeah, it's beautiful.
I love that.
Yeah,
It
that's
just
really
looks like
nice.
this big ominous thing,
Yeah.
and it couldn't hold a dime. That's how
Yeah.
not real it is.
Yeah, I love that. Because clouds, we see them and they cast shadows. They're so real, they cast
Yeah,
shadows. But if you stick your
absolutely.
finger into a cloud, it's like the fog, right? You're in the fog, you don't even know it. Like there's nothing
Yep.
to it. I like that. It can't hold up a dime. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a nice one.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
I can see,
Every once in a
that.
while.
Yeah,
So yeah. Anywho,
nice.
what do you think? Good place to wrap it up, I
Yeah,
think. So
that's a great parting shot, Tyler.
fantastic. I guess I'll just leave the parting shot with me this time. No, but yeah, anything you want to just kind of wrap it up with there?
My parting
Your parting shot?
Mine would just be, go with your experience first and foremost. Enter your experience. The truth of your life is in your experience. You don't need
Mm,
you don't need someone else's experience because it's not yours. Go into yours. That's number one. Number two, sense whether you're in the flow of life or if you're in the thick, sloggy business of your thoughts and beliefs.
mm.
Um, not no, don't resort to your feelings because feelings. This is another show, but feelings are just a result of your thoughts. I'm talking about the sense where you sense it with your
Kind of that
being. It's like,
kind of
yeah,
that knowing almost that
yeah.
we've talked about
And you
before.
just you just know there's just a flow. There's just a flow. You're not in resistance to life, you know?
Yeah, and I think the language that I would put to that, which is speaking to the same thing, is that look for that ring of truth. Not in necessarily somebody else's words, but there will be a resonance to. It's like you're on to something. It's
Hmm.
like you're on the trail of that deeper truth. Um, you've got the whiff of it, like a bloodhound, right?
Mm.
Um, and you'll know, and you'll get sidetracked too, like we all do, um, because we can be deceived by our thoughts and our beliefs. That's actually kind of the nature of them is they're illusory,
It
and
reminds me of
so
sorry.
yeah,
The,
no, good. That's all I was gonna say. So.
it reminds me of when you first start meditating and you sit down and there's like 1 second of peace and everything else is talk, you know? And
Yeah,
it takes practice. You just keep going back. You get angry about it, and you keep coming back, and eventually you get a facility with it. You build the sense of separation between you and the thoughts, or you and the clouds, and you start to sense into the larger truth of what you are.
Right. Yeah, and at first, I like what you said. It just looks like a little blip on the radar, and
Yeah.
because it's so unfamiliar, um, at first glance, it's like, oh, that's not that can't be a deeper truth because it's so seemingly small and like brief.
Yeah.
But really, it's just we're just so familiar with the pain and the heartache and the stress and the struggle of propping those false beliefs up that we've forgotten the truth of who we are. But there's some kind of built-in homing mechanism to call us back home. And like I said, you start it's most people I meet refer to it as a remembering,
Hmm.
not a first time discovery, right? It's like, oh, okay, this is actually familiar. I might not have seen it for a while, might not have experienced it for a while. This is home. The other stuff is the white noise.
And at first, to use your language, the peace of God will be 1% and everything else will be
Right.
99%. But
Yeah.
as you continue and you continue, eventually it becomes 3 or 4%, and then it's got some real, and then
Yeah.
eventually, I don't know if it gets, but eventually it gets large enough that you you begin to practice moving through your day in that way, and you practice moving through conversations, and you end up wanting to find conversations that are difficult just to challenge yourself. Can I still be, as you say, can I still be the peace of God in this conversation with this person, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's literally the cliche, the tip of the iceberg, right?
Yeah.
It's you know, it's big under there.
Yeah.
for
And when we start, we
for
only
what
get the tip, the little tiny tip.
yeah. But it's so worth uncovering. And just for me it's not the oh I've uncovered it, I'm done. It's this lifelong thing.
Yeah.
I really think of it as um, that's kind of what I'm here for, right? A lot of the rest of whatever we're doing here is sort of just side business,
Hmm. Well,
right?
everything else that we're here for is to become the expression of that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
like that's where the
They're just infinite opportunities
yeah,
to become more
exactly.
and more of that. Yeah.
Just go spend the weekend with the in-laws, sort of thing.
That's
Go
right.
practice. Yeah,
All right, Harold.
awesome.
Well, it's been another wonderful show. And thank you for all of you listeners and viewers out there who joined us live. And of course, you can always catch the rebroadcast later on. But just again, for folks who are interested in working with Harold and I on a deeper level, you can reach me at www.coachtylerthurman.blogspot.com. And Harold, you?
You can reach me at www.haroldfeddersen.ca.
Fantastic. So thanks again for joining us. And this has been another episode of Coaching from the Heart. Until next time, we're sending you all the love in the mind.